Welcome to the Overlooked Motel, a place where underseen and unappreciated films get their moment in the spotlight. Today's selection is an unconventional zombie film from the team that wrote Alien. What's more, this lost 80s effort features genre icon Robert Englund in a supporting role. With a pedigree like that, one would expect Dead and Buried to have a substantial fan base. But despite its collective merits, the picture remains sorely underseen by the masses. Alien scribes Ronald Shusett and Dan O'Bannon adapted the screenplay for Dead and Buried from a novel by Chelsea Quinn Yarbrough. The flick is an amalgamation of genres that combines zombie tropes with murder mystery elements and a dash of supernatural horror. The flick is set in Potter's Bluff, a small coastal town with friendly locals and a very low crime rate. When visitors to the sleepy hamlet begin to turn up dead under mysterious circumstances, Sheriff Dan Gillis can't fathom what might be causing the rash of unexplained deaths. He is further perplexed when the recently deceased begin to rise from the dead and inexplicably reintegrate into society. The lawman investigates the suspicious deaths, but initially winds up with more questions than answers. Dead and Buried is steeped in ominous atmosphere. It features a couple of well-timed jump scares that made me leap out of my seat. Picture's unsettling storyline unfolds at a deliberate pace, but the patient viewer will be rewarded by an unpredictable and highly unnerving conclusion that goes off the rails in the best possible way. Speaking of unpredictable, Dead and Buried features an innovative opening that pulls a bait and switch on the audience. The viewer is introduced to a character we assume must be the protagonist, but that expectation is subverted within the first 10 minutes. The would-be lead meets with grave misfortune, establishing an air of unpredictability right from the start. The characters we spend time with are incredibly colorful. The residents of the small town have personality to spare. Having grown up in a tourist trap at the end of the earth, that piece speaks to me. Small towns are often a magnet for the eccentric, and that very much proves to be the case here. The strange way in which the locals behave serves to keep the viewer guessing. Are they up to no good, or simply unusual? Or perhaps a little bit of both? In addition to establishing atmosphere, the eccentric nature of the supporting cast also works to make Dan a more relatable lead. In a sea of quirky characters, Dan comes across as grounded and balanced. He keeps his cool under pressure, even as he discovers a devious and twisted plan is afoot. Dead and Buried stands out for the way it breaks from zombie conventions. The flick features a decidedly different type of zombie than we're accustomed to. The undead easily blend into society. They don't stand out from the pack and can easily pass for living. That distinction works well to keep the audience on their toes for sure. A foreboding score from Joe Renzetti further enhances the paranoia inherent to the narrative. The musical stings build to a crescendo and hold the note to the point of being uncomfortable. That's a supremely effective tactic I wish more film composers used. Dead and Buried also benefits from superb effects from Stan Winston. The celebrated artist brings the zombie carnage to life with aplomb. The gore is sufficiently repulsive. There's a scene featuring a hypodermic needle to a character's eyeball that is still seared into my brain. As for why Dead and Buried remains underseen after all these years, I think it may have flown under the radar because of how unconventional it is. This unorthodox zombie flick is imaginative and unpredictable, which is excellent, but sometimes films that defy expectations take time to connect with viewers. I hope you'll take my word for it and give the picture a chance. It's well worth the time investment. If you look into the film further before watching it, please be mindful of spoilers. I've read multiple plot synopses for Dead and Buried that give away far more information than necessary. Accordingly, I've kept this write-up a bit vague to avoid giving too much away. If you opt to check out Dead and Buried, you can find it streaming for free with ads on Tubi as of the publication of this post. That's all for this installment of the Overlooked Motel. If you'd like to chat more about underseen and underrated films, feel free to hit me up with your thoughts on Twitter, Threads, or Instagram @FunWithHorror.